Boatmakers hate this list, and they don't want customers to know this, because a handful of old boats under $10,000 are quietly outlasting everything built today. Something strange is happening in the used market. These old models won't die. They're selling fast, climbing in value and leaving dealers speechless. The truth, they were built too well. No fragile tech, no digital gimmicks, no manufacturers cutting quality, just raw mechanical durability that refuses to fade. These are the 11 boats under $10,000 that outlast everything and prove old school always wins. Bayliner 1705, Bow Rider. You know a boat was built right when it refuses to disappear from the listings. The Bayliner 1705 Bow Rider from 2009 is that stubborn survivor. Dealers once mocked it as the starter boat, but 15 years later it is still showing up clean, still holding value, and still starting on the first turn of the key. Here's the proof. Auction data from Boat Trader shows units closing between $8,000 and $709,200. When new, this same hull left the showroom for a little under $14,000. That means the depreciation curve flattened to barely $350 per year. For perspective, most new runabouts lose that much every month. The reason is simple engineering. No digital throttles. No touchscreen gauges. Just a Wher Cruiser 3-liter inline-4 engine, mechanical controls, and a fiberglass shell laid thick enough to shrug off dock rash. It's the boat equivalent of a simple carbureted pickup. Easy to service, nearly impossible to overcomplicate. Owners praise one thing most: predictability. Fuel burn sits around 4 gallons per hour at cruise, and yearly maintenance rarely breaks $400 if you handle it yourself. Insurance? About $200 a year. You can calculate every cost before you buy. No hidden surprises, no dealer dependency. That's proof that simplicity still pays. Because sometimes the smartest move on the water isn't spending more. It's knowing when you've already found enough. Tracker Pro Team 1705 TXW. Some boats whisper durability. The Tracker Pro Team 1705 TXW from 2010 practically shouts it through the hull. This aluminum workhorse was never built for shine or showrooms. It was built for mornings when the lake fog is still thick and the temperature barely clears 50 degrees. Guides and weekend anglers call it the forever boat. The proof sits right there in the numbers. A decade and a half after launch, clean models still trade hands for $8,500 to $9,000. When new, the sticker hovered near $14,000. That means it has held roughly 70% of its original value. For a fishing rig that has hauled through brush, sand, and shallow rock, that statistic borders on legendary. The secret is in the metal. Tracker switched to a fully welded hull in this generation. No rivets to loosen, no seams to leak. The design might look plain, but plain survives. Pair that with a Mercury outboard that sips barely 3 gallons an hour and you get ownership costs most modern boats can only envy. This model rewards the patient owner, the kind who rinses after saltwater and keeps the bilge dry. Insurance averages $250 a year. Fuel and service combined, often under $600. Every dollar you save here stays in your pocket, not the dealer's. Durability has many forms, yet few manage to mix it with comfort. The story that follows shows exactly what that balance looks like. Before we move further, I want to hear from you. Which boat would you trust for the next decade? Drop your pick in the comments. And if you're finding this list useful, hit that like button to keep it floating. Sea Ray 1805. Sport. Some boats hold their age like a well-built house. Quiet, solid, still ready for another season. The Sea Ray 1800 Sport from 2008 is one of those builds that feels anchored in common sense. It was designed before manufacturers began trimming fiberglass thickness to save a few dollars per hull. You can feel that difference the moment you step aboard. The floor does not flex. The hull carries real weight. The construction sheets from that era show a deeper stringer system and high-density fiberglass with almost no wood reinforcement. Less rot. Less worry. In today's listings, clean 1800 sports hover around $9,700. 15 years ago, they left the dealership near $42,000. That means this boat shed its depreciation fast, then froze in value. It has lost roughly 35% over more than a decade, compared to newer bowriders losing that much in 3 summers. Fuel use runs about 4 gallons an hour at cruise. Annual maintenance averages $400 if you handle the basics yourself. It is a straightforward mechanical boat. No digital helm, no screen failures, no computer boxes waiting to short. Every part is reachable. Every system familiar. Strength doesn't always shout. Sometimes it hums quietly beneath the deck, waiting to prove why it still belongs on this list. Lund 16, 150. Rebel XL. Some boats earn loyalty the hard way, by taking punishment and asking for more. The Lund 16 150. Rebel XL from 2011 is one of those rare aluminum warriors that refuses to quit. Guides in the northern states still call it the indestructible 16. They run it through ice, timber, and rock because it always makes it back to the dock. The proof sits in the listings. On Boat Trader, well-kept Rebels from this year moved between $9,000 and $409,950. When new, they sold near $10,900. That means a loss of barely $1,500 over more than a decade. Break that down. Roughly $130 per year of ownership. For anything mechanical, that number borders on myth. The secret lies in the material. Lund used marine-grade 5052 aluminum. Riveted, not welded. A choice that flexes instead of cracking. The hull carries a double-plated bow and heavy spray rails, so wave slap turns into a dull thud instead of a dent. It feels solid, honest, built for weather that keeps other boats tied up. Insurance averages $220 a year. Routine upkeep runs about $400 if you change fluids yourself. No gel coat. No rot. Just metal meeting water. Every dollar you spend here buys seasons of confidence. That kind of endurance sets a high bar. Yet history holds a design that turned that same idea into something almost mythical. Boston Whaler 13 Sport. There is tough, and then there is timeless. The Boston Whaler 13 Sport, the original unsinkable legend, belongs to that second category. This little hull has been outliving storms, neglect, and even its own engines since the early 1960s. The secret sits inside the walls. Whaler filled every cavity with closed-cell foam. No hollow pockets, no water traps. Cut it in half and both sides still float. That is not marketing. That is engineering that never had a rival. Auction records prove it. On Boat Trader and Marine Max resale logs, clean 13 Sport still close between $7,200 and $9,400. That range has barely moved in 10 years. Most fiberglass boats drop value like anchors. This one holds steady year after year because it never fails its owner. The maintenance list is almost blank. No wood to rot. No electronics to glitch. Rinse it, cover it, and it will wait patiently for the next outing. Average fuel burn sits around 2 gallons an hour. Annual service rarely breaks $300. Even insurance companies love it because claim numbers are near zero. Reliability can be small and fearless, or wide, slow, and peaceful. The next lesson floats right between those worlds. Sun Tracker Party, Barge 20 DLX. Every now and then, a boat comes along that reminds you relaxation does not have to mean fragility. The Sun Tracker Party Barge 20D LX from 2012 is proof that calm can be constructed like armor. This pontoon does not chase speed. It chases longevity and wins. Look at the structure. Each tube was built from 1/8 inch thick marine aluminum. That is twice the density of most modern pontoons in its price range. The cross members are boxed, not stamped, which stops flexing and eliminates that hollow echo sound when you hit small waves. It feels solid underfoot, like walking on a dock that just happens to move. Resale data backs it up. Clean 2012. Party. Barges routinely sell between $9,600 and $9,900. When new, they averaged a little above $33,500. That is a depreciation curve that flattened years ago. Proof that durability and comfort can share the same ledger. Operating costs stay gentle. The outboard sips about 3 gallons per hour at cruise. Maintenance rarely crosses $400 per season. Even upholstery from this model year holds shape thanks to thicker vinyl and sealed stitching. Not every day on the water should drift. Some deserve a sharper heartbeat. The next story carries that pulse. Chaparell 180 SSI. Every generation has that one boat that feels overbuilt for its price. The Chaparell 180 SSI from 2007 is exactly that kind of mistake. A company built it too well, and used buyers are the ones still benefiting. Start with the construction. This was before cost-cutting stripped weight from the hulls. The fiberglass layup on the 2007 model used full-thickness hand-laid glass, bonded stringers, and a solid transom core. The difference shows up when you hit wake. It lands with a thud, not a slap. That sound tells you everything about quality. Back then, it sold new for roughly $41,000. Today, listings hover between $8,600 and $9,000, meaning it has retained nearly 1/4 of its value over more than 15 years. Compare that to some modern runabouts that lose that much in one summer. Owners report service costs averaging $350 a year when handled personally. The Volvo Penta inboard-outboard setup, standard on most of these, runs clean and steady. Fuel use stays near 4 gallons an hour at cruise. Every system is mechanical, intuitive, and meant to be maintained by a single wrench, not a laptop. Sometimes the market bends backward and rewards the ones who built things right the first time. What follows proves it. If you've made it this far, you're clearly the kind of buyer who values truth over hype. Subscribe right now, because the next few models reveal what dealers never mention, and you won't want to miss what's coming. Carolina Skiff JV17. Sometimes the simplest boats pull off the smartest economics. The Carolina Skiff JV17 from 2013 is proof that basic construction and brutal honesty can outperform high-dollar complexity. It was never designed to impress. It was designed to survive. This flat-bottom skiff is a favorite among commercial crabbers and inshore anglers who measure reliability by years, not weekends. Each hull is laid with solid fiberglass. No wood cores, no sandwich panels, which means rot has nothing to feed on. The gel coat is thick enough to sand and refinish a dozen times before you ever touch the hot laminate beneath it. Back in its launch year, the JV17 sold new for $8,995, a modest price that quietly bought remarkable endurance. Today, listings on Gulf Coast marine auctions show these same hulls moving between $9,000 and $9,600, often within hours of posting. That is not a typo or a rounding error. The value truly went up. In a market where almost everything loses ground, this boat gained roughly 7% and continues to draw steady bids from both recreational owners and small commercial operators who who understand what lasting, low-maintenance design is actually worth. Operating costs remain lean. Average fuel burn sits around 3 gallons an hour. Seasonal maintenance rarely tops $350. You can beach it, scrape it, rinse it, and launch again without fear. Dealers quietly admit they wish fewer of these had been sold because they almost never come back for repair work. Every legend starts somewhere. Yet the next one was forged where depth and distance test everything built to last. Alumcraft Classic 165 CS. There is a certain sound that only aluminum can make when it meets the water. A sharp, honest note that says endurance over elegance. The Alumcraft Classic 165 CS from 2011 carries that sound like a signature. It was built for fishermen who value trust more than trim pieces, and it has quietly become one of the longest-serving hulls in its class. Alumcraft used marine-grade 5052 aluminum alloy throughout the structure, welded at every seam. No fillers, no cosmetic panels hiding shortcuts. The result is a hull that takes a pounding on inland lakes and still comes back looking proud. Guides across the upper Midwest still use their 11-year-old boats every week, and resale listings show why. Average market price sits around $9,300. When new, the sticker hovered just below $28,000. That means depreciation has nearly stopped, dropping less than $100 a year for the last decade. That kind of price stability is unheard of outside of commercial workboats. Fuel economy stays steady at roughly 3 gallons per hour, while annual upkeep rarely exceeds $600, even with heavy use. Nothing about this rig is overcomplicated. Everything is visible, serviceable, and built to last another generation. Endurance on lakes is one thing. Surviving salt, wind, and open horizons is another. The next proof takes that challenge head-on. Grady White Seafarer 226. Some boats feel alive the moment you step aboard. The Grady White Seafarer 226 from the late 1990s feels carved from confidence itself. It is heavy, deliberate, and unapologetically overbuilt. The kind of construction that reminds you when builders cared more about safety than saving weight. Look at the specs. The hull averages 3/8 of an inch of solid fiberglass, hand-laid in layers thick enough to dull a drill bit. Compare that to most modern hulls running a 1/4 inch. That extra glass makes every pound count in your favor when the water turns mean. Back when it was new, the Seafarer carried a price tag north of $45,000. A serious investment for families and charter captains alike. Today, clean examples move for $9,000 to $9,800 depending on condition, hours, and region. That kind of resilience is almost unheard of in a fiberglass hull of this age. Nearly 30 years later, it still holds 1/5 of its original sticker, still starts on the first turn, and still rides through rough coastal chop with the same steady confidence that made it a benchmark for seaworthy dependability. Fuel burn on its Yamaha 200 horsepower outboard stays near 9 gallons per hour at cruise. Maintenance is straightforward, and the systems remain mechanical enough for any dockside mechanic to service without factory software. Owners consistently report 0 hull failures, even after 2 decades of salt use. Every story about durability needs a final word, the kind that stands quiet while everything else fades away. Macco 1701 Angler. Every list has its benchmark, the machine that quietly defines the standard everyone else tries to meet. The Macco 1701 Angler from 2008 is that mark in small boat reliability. It was built during a brief window when engineers still designed for endurance, not efficiency charts. The formula was straightforward. A solid fiberglass hull, a simple center console, and a Mercury 90 horsepower outboard that could idle all afternoon without complaint. No digital steering, no touchscreen helm. Just honest construction meant to last. That is why survey records from the last 5 years show almost no structural failures among these hulls. Price trends prove the point. When new, the Macco 1701 angler sold for about $36,000. Today, clean examples list near $9,200. The depreciation curve has been flat since 2021. A 0% change according to the NADA Marine Guide. That means owners are using them, not losing on them. Operating costs stay gentle. Fuel burn averages 4 gallons per hour, and yearly service hovers around $400 if you handle basic maintenance. The design leaves every hose, wire, and fitting accessible. Nothing buried, nothing hidden. For anyone who fixes their own vehicles, that matters more than shine. The truth is simple. Lasting value still exists for those patient enough to recognize it when they see it. So there you have it. 11 boats under $10,000 that prove strength never goes out of style. Subscribe, stay sharp, and remember, the smartest. Money isn't spent on shine, it's spent on endurance. Your next great boat might already be waiting in someone's backyard.